Taiwanese vibraphonist and percussionist Chien Chien Lu, along with Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native bassist Richie Goods, have developed a sound that is both engaging and rhythmic. Their music draws from a rich tapestry of cultural influences, including Taiwanese, American, and African American traditions, especially within the jazz subculture. Chien Chien Lu and Richie Goods aim to broaden their musical repertoire, creating a connection that resonates with listeners. Hi, I'm Steve Browngen, and welcome to another episode of Strictly Jazz Sounds, your podcast about all things jazz. Recently, Chien Chien Lu and Richie Goods joined me in the studio during their visit to Columbus, Ohio, where they worked with students at Otterbein University and performed to an enthusiastic full house audience later that evening. We had an engaging conversation rich with stories about their individual journeys into jazz and the formation of their remarkable musical partnership. Chien Chien Lu shared her experiences performing in classical ensembles in Taiwan, which included what all I could say is as understated as it possibly could be, lively gatherings. And they were lively, believe you me. The transition from playing classical music to embracing the creative freedom of jazz uplifted Chien to new heights when she attended school in Philly and later connected with Richie Goods and trumpeter Jeremy Pelt. The stories had us roaring with laughter. Richie Goods' musical journey began in Pittsburgh, where he developed a passion for music at an early age. His talent is enormous, as is his bass sound. It's evident on how he was the youngest person to be inducted into the Pittsburgh Jazz Hall of Fame. His journey was typical of many African Americans, performing in church. Richie also played in clubs while still attending Pittsburgh Creative and Performing Arts High School. He is a Berklee College graduate who then moved to New York City, where he studied under jazz icons Ron Carter and Ray Brown. His real lift occurred while working with jazz piano legend McGrew Miller for 9 years. Connected is a band jointly led by Richie Goods and Chien Chien Lu. Their latest recording is Connected Volume 1. This project was conceived during the pandemic, during frequent rap sessions Richie Goods and Chien Chien had about the Black Lives Matter movement and the unwarranted hate crimes against Asians. They decided to do a project that would unify people and invoke an imagery of love and peace. The result is a dynamic jazz group influenced by global sounds, which reflects the musical identities of Richie and Chien. Connected Volume 1 won the Best Instrumental Album at the 34th Golden Melody Awards in Taiwan. The playlist for this episode includes 4 recordings. They tap into their latest project, Connected Volume 1, and Chien Chien Lu's first recording, The Path. Richie Goods produces and performs on both albums. The rhythms are infectious, with Chien Chien Lu on vibes and marimba, with Richie Goods on acoustic and electric bass. Please note that there may be some technical issues with the audio. However, the conversation is great and contains valuable insights. I want to thank A Try for Jazz for helping to make this interview possible. The episode opens with Treasure Mountain from the album Connected Volume 1. I know you have a multitude of choices to listen to, and you chose to spend time with this one. Thanks. This is Strictly Jazz Sounds. I'm Steve Browngen. let's begin by sharing with my listeners who you are. What's your background? I know, but they may not know. So let's start with Chien Chien.
Okay.
And you have quite a fascinating background.
I was a percussionist when I was in Taiwan, studying all the classical stuff, playing pianos when I was 6. I started to play piano when I was 6. And when I got to college, I started to tour with a percussion ensemble. But I started to feel a little bit limited. I want to improvise more. But, in a group, you have to use the same sticking, and everything has to be the same. Outfit has to be the same. So I wanted to do more with the music. And I just started to have this idea, maybe come to the States to study something a little different. And then one day I was listening to radio, a jazz radio, and I heard the music. I felt the freedom. So I decided, maybe this is the type of genre I should dive in. So that's why I moved to Philly in 2015. And after 2 years in school, I moved to New York.
What I found interesting is with Yuhan Su.
Yes.
And she says the same thing on why she went from classical to jazz. She wanted more challenge. She wanted the improvisation gave her a stronger feeling. Was that for you? I mean, that really drove you?
Yeah, Yuhan is a huge inspiration to me. And we were in the same percussion ensemble. She is, I think, 8 or 9 years older than me. We never worked together in Taiwan. So, but I'm glad she felt the same way, because that's how I felt. Because in that group, it's a very, very business type of music group. So we had to do a lot of social event, hang out with a lot of people, drink a lot. And I feel like I can spend my energy on something else, like on music. But I was spending a lot of energy on those social events and drinking and throwing up.
No kidding.
I'm not joking. But I felt, it gave me a lot of skills, in terms of the stage presence and just a lot of business side. I learned in that 5 years. I was in college. But a lot of students in that group couldn't really handle it because we were students, but we were forcing to hang out with businessmen and trying to sell tickets for the group. But now I look back, that was just a reality. But we were just too young, so we didn't know how to handle it. But now I feel like I got a lot of experience. It's because of that 5 years in the percussion group. It was a little bit extreme, I will say it was a little bit extreme, but I learned a lot.
We're going to get back to that. Richie, you obviously have a very different upbringing,
Yeah.
and you're a Pitts guy.
That's right. Pittsburgh, the bird.
You bet, man. But tell me about, share about your past, your education. You clearly had a real advantage in your education.
Well, I think I did.
In high school in particular.
I went to a performing arts high school in Pittsburgh, which was awesome. As a kid, I've been playing music since I was 5, and my mother was a musician. She was the music director at our church. She played piano, guitar. She also did Broadway stuff. She was living in New York for a little while. And so that was my musical upbringing. It's like playing piano, and mostly piano and drums in the church. But then I got to high school and I started playing bass. I went to the Performing Arts High School, which was just an amazing experience. And that's where I really started to learn jazz. And then from there I went on to Berklee College of Music, which I also think is awesome.
With all of that enrichment, was there anything that you did that you learned, and particularly at Berklee, and maybe Chien Chien Lu, you can answer this question too, but the business of jazz, the business of music. I'm finding that in many musicians, they just didn't know about the business. They knew about the music and they played well, but the business of it, was that something that you learned in school, anywhere?
No, I'm just finding out about it. No, really, it's something me and Chien talk to when we do, and we're going to do a talk later at the university, and we always talk to young musicians about the business, because that's something we were never taught about, and I just thought I was going to practice my butt off, and which I did, and I just thought that was going to bring in money, and it didn't. And then I was gigging. It'll get you in the door, but it's not. You wonder why people are always saying this person, they're not even that good, and how are they making that kind of money? Well, they know about the business.
Maybe they have a manager. Maybe they have an agent. Maybe they have just simply the knowledge of social media, how to do contracts, all of those things. And this is what's missing in jazz education. Isn't that, Chien Chien Lu?
I learned so much from Richie, and also the percussion group I was mentioning earlier. So I think these years, this knowledge coming from Richie and the percussion group experience, they started to merge together. And the more you understand human nature, that helps too. Like people, personalities, how to hang with different types of people, and that helps a lot with the business side.
And you had to do a lot of that with the ensemble, right?
Yes, I was doing a lot. But I was very chill because I was just having fun. I had no enemy in that group. But I see the certain way they do things. They pick their favorite players to play, the most important parts. Or just, you see the arrangement. Who is going to this dinner, who is doing this ensemble, who is touring in Korea, who is going to China to tour. They have like a arrangement for everybody. And now I'm thinking back, that's all business. Yeah.
That's interesting. So really, the cultural aspect in Taiwan, in this group, played a very large role. And yet, for you, Richie, it was the church, another cultural aspect,
right,
played a foundational role
exactly
for you and your music.
Yes, definitely.
If you were talking to someone younger, say you're talking to a 14-year-old, and she or he said, I really want to do this, how would you advise them? What kind of road would you pave for them?
Chien?
We'll start with Richie.
Okay, all right.
He tried to pass that on,
right?
man. He tried to pass that on.
Well, first of all, I do think it starts with a God-given talent. You don't have to be the most talented, but you do have to have somewhat of a gift. And you have to evaluate, was I born with that gift? And which a lot of people are, but once you're born with that gift, then you have to have this feel. I always loved, Chien wrote this song called Blind Faith. And she always talks about this stupid blind faith that you have to have, and there's so many naysayers that think music, you can't really make a living playing music. You have to have that blind faith to say, look, I'm going 100% and I'm doing this, because I don't believe in halfway doing it. You have to be all in and just go for it. But the other thing I'll tell them is that, which I was not told, is this is a business. It's not just music. Like if you want to make a living, right? So yeah, you want to be creative, it's art, but this is how you make your living. So you have to start to understand the business and figure out, how am I going to be okay? How am I going to make money doing this? And then you start looking at the music industry. There's tons of ways to make money. There's not just one way to make money. There's so many ways, and there's so much money out there. So focus on your art and go 100%. Develop that. Now, at the same time, think about the business and how you're going to make money.
What's your plan?
Exactly.
You have to put it together. Somebody needs to do that.
Right. The plan, like, oh, I'm going to be Taylor Swift. I'm going to be Beyonce. I don't know that that's a good, because Beyonce and Taylor Swift, that was not their plan. Their plan, like, I had the pleasure of working with Sting, and talking to him, you know, you get this, he seems like he's this superstar, like, he's just so above every other regular musician. But when you talk to him about music, he's one of all of us. He started out the same way. He was a kid that just loved music, and they started a band, and he just had this love. He was into Bob Marley, he was into Jimi Hendrix, and that's just what he did. But somehow what he had was infectious to other people. Mm-hmm. And it happened for him. But just because that doesn't happen for you doesn't mean you can't have a career in the business. A lot of people have a great career, but they're not Beyonce or Taylor Swift or Sting.
I mean, it's like a kid in high school or even middle school who wants to play football and says, I want to be in the NFL. Yeah. Says, do you realize that a fraction of a fraction of a fraction make it to the NFL? Says, if you want to be involved in whatever, you can find a way to do that. But maybe you're not going to be, whomever, What's that? Could you answer that question for me, Chien Chien Lu?
Yeah, I agree with Richie on that first point. You have to have a given talent first, and then practice. And to me, the next level is trying to connect. Because I was a hardcore classical musician, but I was practicing all Mozart and Bach, all that stuff, playing in orchestra, but I never feel connected to the music. And I started to go on tour to Europe, so I started to visit, Beethoven's house and all that great composer's house, and trying to really see their life. And all of a sudden, I started to like this type of music. So I'll really highly suggest young musicians go out to see the world, attend workshops, so you have this connection with this culture and the music. Because I believe the art is a crystallization of culture, and culture is daily life. So when you put yourself in that kind of environment, you connect with the culture, you connect with the art form, and you connect with this type of music.
The transition that you made from Taiwan to the United States, how was that for you? And how did you make that transition?
So I really wanted to just study a different thing. So when I go back to Taiwan, I don't need to go back to that percussion ensemble. Like, I was like, okay, jazz and, classical, just music.
Yeah.
No. I was crying the first year, all the time. Call my mom, this is too hard. I can't handle it. And my mom was like, oh, just come back to the percussion group. That's fine. And I was like, no.
That inspired you to work. You said, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah, when you don't have plan B, you are just going to go for it. So that was me. I didn't have plan B. I just have to get it. So I will wake up 5 a.m. every day and get into the music building with the cleaning lady and just sit in that one room, practice for like 10 to 12 hours, trying to figure out what is swing feel? What is this scale? What is that? I was spending so much time. I agree. I waste a lot of time because you're not supposed to practice for so long. But I just, my mind is all about trying to figure out what's going on. It was hard. It was rough.
But it was something that you needed to latch on to. It seems to me that it was your hook. You needed to hook into it some way in order to feel grounded in it.
Yeah.
And to feel that you were capable of performing this art form.
Right. Yeah.
And nobody said jazz was easy. It's just that it's cool.
But I do think it's a little more difficult for someone like Chien Chien coming from a completely different culture, because coming from black music in general, like gospel, R&B, jazz. There's so many forms of American music.
Yeah.
That they all kind of stem from the blues.
Yeah.
And there's so many similarities. And so like a gospel musician, they already have like the feel for jazz. It's just, lighten up here, do this there. Like, you tweak a few things. But coming from a whole different culture, it's like...
Particularly one like Taiwan, China.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very different mindset.
Yeah.
The feel is
The feel is very different.
the feel.
Very, very different. And that's the kind of thing that you're talking about, Richie.
Right. So that's why I commend Chien for that transition, and she talks, and that's been kind of a focus point on a lot of her talks when she talks to classical musicians or musicians from other countries, and especially from Taiwan, that how to make that transition.
Yuhan Su calls that, for her, it's a double consciousness experience.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Where she has her culture to deal with, and then as she's trying to get into the United States, she had to learn English. She had to figure out how she was going to live. Mm-hmm. She had to find a job. She had to find an apartment. And putting all those things together. And in New York City.
Yeah, I know.
In New York City. It's a hell of a place to be.
Yeah.
And an expensive place to be.
Yeah.
But actually, I kind of think New York is a great place to do that, because there's just so many opportunities, and you can find ways to live inexpensively in New York. There's ways, but I just think there's so many resources that a lot of other cities don't have, and especially when it comes to music and art.
One thing I learned a lot from transitioning from my culture's mindset to American mindset is, in my culture, we really don't want to ask for help from people.
Yeah.
Because you want to respect everybody. But now I live in the States, especially in New York. I found out that if you empower the people around you and really know how to, just hang out with people and really tell them what you need, people, collectively helping you, then you are not putting yourself in a alone place and, trying to deal with all the other things like speaking English and trying to get a visa, get a job, all that stuff in New York City. Instead, there are so many talented people in New York. You learn how to empower the people around you, and you all collectively become better.
So you as a community, as a music community, really is what it is, and I'm catching this from everybody that I have spoken with, that the community really lifts each other up and holds them, and that creates multiple minor communities, but you find your niche. The cultural aspect of you two coming together. I want to talk about how both of you came together and were able to find for each other, in each other, support and a willingness to unfold yourself with each other, with the Taiwanese culture and with the American culture, African American culture. Right. Who would like to kick that out?
I was hired by Jeremy Pell. Yeah, I remember before that tour, I was so nervous because I didn't get any black friends back then. So I was so nervous. And then I went on the tour and everybody is just very nice and awesome people.
But wait, I remember that her friends would see pictures of Chien with 4 black dudes and they're sending her mess. Be careful. Be careful.
No, yeah, but like it was all in the movies.
See, but that's the point. It is taking what you know, which may not be real, but what you know, and how that interacts with what you're trying to do and what your life really is. I mean, this guy, he does look like he'd hurt a mouse, but...
I'm a dangerous person.
I bet you are, man. I bet you are stone dangerous, man. You're dangerous on that bass, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you were with Jeremy. Let me back up for a minute. You were with Vijay Iyer.
Yeah. I went to the workshop.
Yeah, that Banff workshop.
So Jeremy Pell heard me play, and I was just playing at a launch concert.
What did Vijay? I was curious. What did Vijay think about you and your work?
Because I really want to go to as many as workshop as I can when I was in Philly studying. So I remember the application. I handed in a video of me playing Keith Jarrett's Cologne concert.
Oh, really?
Marimba description. That was very, very hard.
That's serious.
I was a hardcore classical musician, so I played that thing like effortlessly on my recital, and I just hand that stuff in, and VJ talked to me because I got accepted to the workshop, and when I was hanging out in the workshop, he came to me. He was like, "That video you played the Cologne concert, that was amazing." So I know it's because of that.
Hard work and seemed to pay off. So you meet up with Jeremy, who says, "Hey, I want to take you on my tour."
Yeah, first he said, I want you to be on my record. So I remember we recorded our first, me in that group, the first record in Bunker Studio in Brooklyn. And I rolled my vibraphone in the studio, and the engineer was like, "Today we are recording Jeremy Pell's." He was trying to tell me that you are at the wrong spot.
Are you kidding me? And
I was like, yes, I play vibes. I play vibes.
And he didn't know that.
He didn't know that. I just looked too out. I look like I fresh off the boat.
How old were you then?
I was 28.
And I bet you looked lost, didn't you?
Probably.
Shows up at the studio door. I've got my vibes. What do I do? Where do I go? You know. So, oh, what a time that must have been.
Yeah, everything was, to me, was so nervous. I was so nervous, you know, going to Europe tour, going to record, everything. I was overwhelmed.
And so you ran into this guy,
Yeah.
Richie.
We were hanging out 2 weeks on this European tour, and after that we got back. Richie asked me, "Do you have any release? Do you have any album out?" I was like, "No, I've been trying to record, but a lot of people told me don't do it because that's just a waste of money. You know, people just told me don't release anything. It's really easy to take people's, you know, suggestion if you don't have a stronger mindset." But Richie was like, let's I want to produce a record for you.
Richie, what did you think when you first saw her? First heard her?
When I heard her, I was listening the first night. I'm like, well, first of all, I knew Jeremy hired her, so I knew she had to be okay, you know. But I heard her first, and I was like, oh man, she kind of soulful. Like she could, I don't know. Let me listen tomorrow night, and then tomorrow night, the next night, I'm like, man, wait, no, she's really soulful, and that's something that's is really important to me in music, is that soul, the blues, and that feel, and I fell in love with her playing. I was night after night, and then also while listening to the audience, I'm like, they feel it too. Like the audience was, I could tell they were kind of mesmerized by her playing and everything, and then we got to hang out on that tour, and I was like, so who are your influences on vibraphone? And she said, Roy Ayers. Roy Ayers?
Who knows Roy Ayers,
I
right?
know. How do you even know Roy Ayers? And that kind of shot, and that put, I was like, well, that's why you play like that. That's why you're so soulful. It was Roy Ayers, Milt Jackson, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like getting ideas, because I really thought she had a unique voice, and I don't know, everybody doesn't need to record their own project, at least right away. I think you need to have something to say, like a voice or something.
Yeah.
But I thought she had a unique, original voice. So, you know, I told her I thought she should record a project, but I said, let me hear your songs. Oh no, my songs suck. I'm like, well, let me hear them. So I listened to her songs. I was like, no, these are good. You just need the right musicians to bring them to life. And we start playing, and you need to figure out your lane, which lane you want to go. So over the course of the next, maybe year or 9 months, something like that, I start doing some gigs with her. I was like, we could just do some little gigs just to figure things out. And we start seeing what songs she wanted to do and arranging them and finding the right musicians and everything. And, you know, that's how we came up with her first record, The Path.
It's a great album.
I remember we would do like little club. Like nobody was listening.
Oh yeah.
Everybody talks louder than us and pays
Right.
$500, but we were trying to figure out the song.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was just
He would do that kind of, you know, he's already like established, so great, such a great musician, and he was willing to help me out.
That must have really touched you quite a bit. What were you thinking about during that time?
I have been thinking about releasing my stuff for a long time. So when Richie wanted to help, that was like better than won the lottery. That was better than winning the lottery. Yes, that's literally how I think. The first time I had that thoughts is getting into Jeremy Pell's band. I think that's choosing between winning the lottery and getting into Jeremy Pell's band. I would choose getting into Jeremy Pell's band, and then having Richie helping me. That's also another great thing.
Well, that's where we differ on that. Like, I would take the lottery, but
you can buy Jeremy's band.
Yeah, right. Yo, Jeremy, let me break you off a little something so I can play in your band. Like, I'll finance this tour for you. Just let me play.
But Chien Chien, I was thinking about that, and I guess there's no other way to put it. But you scored. You scored. There are so many other musicians, your age, take a look at the number. You even said this. How many years did you play jazz? You are having people who've been playing jazz since they were kids who still can't break in. And yet you were at the right place at the right time. It's an amazing thing for you.
Well, I also don't believe I think there is some aspect of luck to it, but they say luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Right.
And so, yeah, she put in the work and everything, and so she was able to get the opportunities. And I told her, I was like, this is not a charity case for me to do this. I'm like, I'm doing this because I think you're really talented. You have a voice that I think needs to be out there. And so, yeah, I don't, when it comes to music, I don't believe in complete luck. I think it's hard work. And I think if you work hard, it might take longer for some, but I think you'll get opportunities. Everyone doesn't get the same opportunities. But, you'll get opportunities.
It's what you do with it.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
And you're doing a lot with it.
Mm-hmm.
You now have 3 albums as a leader.
Yeah, one co-leader.
One co-leader. We'll call that co-leadership. And that's connected. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Path. Talk a little bit about that album. It's your first recording, self-release. It was a self-release. So The Path, you used as a base for that, in terms of the compositions, music that you were familiar with in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. Why don't you talk about that?
So I got that idea from the percussion group I was in Taiwan, because I heard so many sound when I was in that percussion group. So I want to really bring back the vibe, and so that's why the song is on marimba. But the thing is, I didn't really know how to place the rhythmic side. So Richie was helping me with a lot of the rhythm stuff. But the whole sound is coming from the percussion group. A lot of more like a East Asia sound. Yeah, and I will say a lot of my composition is coming from my ear, like the stuff I was listening when I was growing up, either Chinese pop or some traditional Asian music. A lot of very, very melodic, dramatic lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell that. It really works its way through. It jumps out at you if you're paying attention to it anyway. If it's background, I don't know, but I was really caught by how much it was influenced, and I can hear the different types of harmonies in it as it comes from that culture. And so, Richie, you added to that album. You produced that album,
right?
And with that production, what were you looking for in that album?
It was mainly to help her get her voice out. And so trying to figure out what is it that you like, what is it that you want to sound like, and help cultivating that in a jazz format, whatever that means. But yeah, so and listening to her songs and figuring out how to arrange the songs, and also getting her to expand her mind in terms of what jazz is and everything. I'm like, jazz is a mixture of a lot of stuff. So I think your voice would be most unique if you take aspects from your culture and put them into jazz, and that's perfectly cool. Like the percussion ensemble stuff, the classical stuff, and one song we had her mother sing traditional Taiwanese melody, and then she did an arrangement of this Taiwanese song, but it starts out with the very traditional melody with her mother singing it, and so that was the main focus of doing that record, is trying to get her voice out and making it unique to her.
What was the critical response to that album?
I think people loved it.
People loved it. And I got like 7 nominations from different awards.
Yeah.
And so people started to talk about my album and everything. Yeah.
I know we loved it. I'll never forget. There's moments, you always remember, and I always remember after I finished mixing it, and we went to Dave Darlington, did the mastering, and he sent us, a copy to listen to on the way home. We're in a car listening to it, and we're just quiet, and I look over, and Chien she's crying. I was like, what's wrong? She was like, I've never liked my music before, and I love this. This is great. Like,
did I really cry?
Yes. How can you not remember that?
I don't.
And that was the biggest compliment for me.
Oh yeah.
That was the biggest compliment.
Thank you so much. One time I got a phone call from Chase, and we were dealing with a credit card thing, and after that, she asked, "Are you Chien Chien Lu?" I said, "Yeah." She said, I've been listening to your album, The Path, in the gym.
Get out of here.
We live in Brooklyn, baby. And then, she started to, and I was like, ah.
Yeah. And I remember that We Live in Brooklyn, a lot of people, we were trying to format the record, figure out what song goes where on the record. And I remember I was like, we got to put We Live in Brooklyn first. Because that track, it just hits so hard, and people love it. But then there was some people, the jazz police, said, no, this is her first record, and she doesn't even solo on We Live in Brooklyn. But this is her arrangement. She did the strings, and it's jazz. It's not all about the solo. It's music, and
it's about working together.
Yeah.
It's the whole ensemble.
Yeah. And everybody to this day still talks about We Live in Brooklyn.
there are so many people who don't understand jazz, who don't understand that it's beyond just what you hear in a record. It's about the group coming together and collectively doing something in the moment.
Right.
That's and this is what inspired you so much, Chien Chien, when you came back to the country and came to the United States, and then you took it back to Taiwan.
Yeah.
How was that experience in Taipei for you, in having this group in Taipei, and it's like you're rolling out to say, I am bringing home me.
I'm so glad to see that all the young people now in Taiwan are exploring different types of music. The reason I came to the States is because I couldn't find any, resources in Taiwan. I couldn't find people to teach me what is jazz. So I left. But now there are so many concerts, workshops, and just different types of band happening in Taiwan. So I'm really happy. And last year I brought this band with Richie when we went back to Taiwan. And a lot of younger musicians now started to come to the States to study jazz.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
A lot of vibes players.
A lot of vibes.
A lot of vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because of her.
That's impressive.
Yeah, not just vibraphone. A lot of musicians wanted to come here to study jazz and really figure out what's going on. Because for the longest time, Taiwan is just, there's only classical music in Taiwan. I remember when I was about to leave Taiwan, some really powerful people in the industry, they told me, jazz? Whenever we receive flyers, we throw that in the trash cans, right? Jazz? That's pop music. What are you doing? Because I got to a really high scholar, like master degree in Taiwan, and also working in the percussion ensemble, touring all the time. So they were like, why?
Yeah.
That was 10 years ago, but now every time Golden Melody Award winning is jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yuhan.
Yeah, Yuhan.
Yeah.
She's one of the OG. And then I was hired to be the judge for this year's Golden Melody. Yeah, I was. They flew me back, and I heard other judges were like, why every year is the winner is a jazz? Why? I hear
Jazz
people
is
started
taking
to talk.
over.
Yeah, jazz is taking over because people started to explore. Because it's a spirit to me. Jazz is a spirit. It includes a lot of different culture and elements. It has the most generous, I don't know how to say. Yeah.
Terry Lynn Carrington has an album, Jazz is a Spirit.
Oh,
really?
Yes.
It is a spirit.
It is a spirit.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, here in the United States, because it was different in Taiwan, but here in the United States, folks really had to figure out how to come together and do something.
Right.
Folks were playing outdoors, or folks were, being together, but, windows were open, they had masks, but had to have the music, had to do something.
Right.
And you guys just absolutely pulled it together and said, let's do this.
Right.
And the product of that was connected.
Exactly.
What about built-in system? Was that part? Were the compositions from that
No,
part of that?
It's a different release. Yeah, I got this offer from Jimmy Katz.
Mm-hmm.
He has this non-profit organization
Yeah.
called Giant Step Art, and then he wanted to produce a record.
Talk about Giant Step Arts for a minute, would you?
Yeah. So Jimmy Katz is the director. So he reached out to people and then really, putting all sponsor.
What does Giant Arts do? Giant Steps Arts do?
They release, helping musicians to release their project, and they don't own any right of my song.
And that's an important part of this. If someone had asked you about it, how would you lead them to Jimmy Katz? What would you suggest that they do?
Jimmy Katz is a wonderful photographer, and also he's a producer for all the Giant Step Arts release. So yeah, he has a vision to do things. So that's why I'm doing as a quartet. I have Jeremy Pyo on trumpet and Richie and Alan Manar on drums. There's no other quartet. Yeah, so it creates a lot of space, because if you don't have another quartet instrument, then it's really open. So that's Jimmy's vision. He highly suggested. So that's why I went for that direction. I was afraid in the beginning, but then afterwards, I really like the sound. It's a completely different sound than the project we have.
Right.
So that's really good because it's different.
Yeah, two vastly different.
Right.
So, your label is
Richman Music Inc.
Richman Music Inc. And Richman Music Inc. Produced and released Connected?
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah. As a label owner, are you doing other labels, or is this a self-directed project for you?
Mainly self-directed. Yeah.
And my understanding, when I've spoken with other musicians who at least started out that way, they felt that it was important to have a label that responded to what they're doing. They wanted to have something that they could just do themselves, and instead of calling it an indie, they have that.
Right. Well, I like to produce other art. I do produce other artists well, but I don't release them. I'm not opposed to releasing them on my label. Actually, me and Chien talked about that. But my label is mostly for my music. Yeah, it's just a lot to release records. But in producing, though, that is one thing I'm focused on, is when I'm producing, is to try to get the artist's sound and letting them do their thing. So if they would record under my label, I would always want them to be able to have their own thoughts, try to get their own voice out.
And it's pretty hard for musicians who have a sound that is not as commercial.
Right.
Or, Columbia, which is now owned by UMG. But there are so few companies now that own the vast majority of labels.
Right.
And you're finding so many of these smaller labels that are pulling together. It's such as what Chris Davis is doing in Pyroclastic Records, Biophilia Records, with Fabian Amazon. Fabian is doing that, and Chris with Pyroclastic, and it tells me that there is so much required now of what musicians have to do in order to make it, and it's like, let me take the ball and run with it myself. And it's really hard, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What you were around, you played with McGrew Miller, you played with a lot of cats, at a time when the record industry was vastly different than it is now.
Yeah.
How was that compared to today?
Well, yeah, I remember, first of all, a lot of records paying more and major releases. I remember just recording a ton of records. People seemed like they were recording a lot more in studios with major labels, and labels were, I remember artists getting tour support. You record a record for a label, they do everything.
They line it up for you.
Yeah, they line everything, and then when it comes time to tour, they help out with financially. Look, here's some money to pay your band. If this is your first tour, you might not make that much, so we want to support you and everything to develop your career and everything. Now, if a major label signs you, it's because, usually you already recorded the record. You have they're not trying to develop anyone anymore. And so you kind of, depending on, it doesn't matter what label you go with, you kind of have to do everything yourself. And then once you've done everything, then the labels say, yeah, okay, I got it from here.
Where do you think the industry is going with that? What do you foresee?
That's that's a good question. I really don't know, but I do know. I hope there are some changes that are positive for the artists, because right now I know me and Chien get so. She calls me yelling at me on the phone saying, "Why are we doing this? This is not music. Like, is this our job to do all the promotion for the clubs, to do all, like, we do like everything?" I'm like, what is anyone else doing? Like, no one's helping us when we get on the stage. No one's helping us when we're writing this music, when we're practicing. We're doing that on our own. But as a venue, as a label, as people, I feel like they should be, I don't know. If I'm putting on a concert, I want to, if I'm bringing a band in and putting on a concert, I'm bringing the band in because I know they're good. So now I got to sell tickets. I got to get the connections and everything. Not anymore. The clubs are like, yeah, can you do some promo? Can you post this on your social media? Did you send out, mailings and everything? Yeah, there's not too many tickets being sold. Well, I mean, my music is going to be good. My music is good, so
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Sell some tickets.
It seems that there is such a gap now, and the musicians are in such a different world than it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know, I was talking to Jocelyn Gold, guitarist from Canada, from Winnipeg, and she says, I do it all, and I know I have to do it all, so that's what I do. I organize myself to do it all, and that has made the industry a vastly different place.
Yeah. Well, the advantages to that, though, is when you have control. If we're recording our own records, our own music, and under our own label, so we do it the way we want to do it, and so people are. I think that's one good thing. I think a lot of people are getting more of the artists, of what the artist wants to present, rather than what a label wants to present. So I think that is the upside to that.
Yeah. I mean, that there has to be an upside to it. My hope is that there is the opportunity for more money. I mean, but you have, say, Bandcamp, for instance,
right,
that provides that distribution capacity so that you would be able to make more money off of that product. And so that makes Bandcamp a real advantage, particularly on days like today, Bandcamp Friday.
Right, yeah. Which, unfortunately, we don't take advantage of as like we should. Artists, Bandcamp Friday, go to my Bandcamp page.
Pump it out.
Yeah, I know.
We need to. There are just so many things.
So much to do.
So much to do.
We get on meetings every single day, almost probably 5 days a week, where on meetings, we're on Zoom meetings, just doing business stuff, trying to things out. So I actually get excited for rehearsals. We're going in the studio. I get excited. I'm like, we're doing music today.
You're being a musician.
Right.
Instead of doing the agent's work or manager's work, or whatever have you. When you write, you get together to do it together?
Usually. Sometimes we'll come up with ideas on our own. We have a couple songs we've written independently, but sometimes we'll have ideas and then we'll get together and we'll help develop each other's ideas.
Yeah.
So you're a real team.
Oh, we are definitely a team.
That's excellent.
Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Oh, keep your self-respect and your manly pride. Get yourself in gear and keep your stride. Oh, never mind dreams right up into the sky. Oh, sing your greatest song and you'll keep on going on. Oh, take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Oh, take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Hey, take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Oh, just wait and see, someday we'll all be free. Hey, we'll all be free. Yeah. Someday we all will be free. Someday we'll all be free. Hold up your head up high, high. Brighter days will soon be here. Never mind your fears. Never mind your fears. Yeah. Someday we'll all, I believe it. One day we'll all be free. Yeah. Oh. Someday we'll all be free. Someday we'll all be free.
Chien Chien Lu and Richie Goods have recorded their next project. It's a live recording. Keep your eyes and ears open for its release. Thanks to Chien Chien Lu and Richie Goods for taking the time out of their tight and busy calendars to do this interview and to work with me on its eventual publication. And thanks to Bruce Halliburton for assuring their arrival. Thanks to A Tribe for Jazz for making this conversation possible. Hey, breaking news, you can now find Strictly Jazz Sounds on the largest online jazz site, All About Jazz. Go to allaboutjazz.com, then go to the radio and podcast section. Our theme music is from the composition McCoy, which can be found on Johannes Wallmann's album Precarious Towers. Jazz festivals continue throughout the winter months, and jazz cruises are booking up, so make your way to some place where jazz music can be found. Join my Facebook group, Jazz Enthusiasts, to learn about jazz from around the world. Subscribe to this podcast, and you become one of the first to be informed when new episodes, photos, articles, and announcements are made. Thanks so much for listening. This is Strictly Jazz Sounds, your podcast about everything jazz. I'm Steve Browngen.